Welcome, friends. This week's lesson takes us deep into one of the most dramatic showdowns in the Bible: God versus Pharaoh, truth versus falsehood, freedom versus oppression. As we explore the plagues of Egypt, we'll uncover powerful lessons about God's justice, human choice, and divine sovereignty. Let's dive in and discover what these ancient events still mean for us today. This week's lesson is titled, The Plagues. The memory text is from Exodus chapter 9 verse 35. It reads, "So the heart of Pharaoh was hard. Neither would he let the children of Israel go, as the Lord had spoken by Moses." Like the farmer who walloped his donkey with a thick branch to get its attention when the donkey didn't want to move, God had to get Pharaoh's attention, who would not let the children of Israel go. Not only would God get Pharaoh's attention, God would persuade him to change his mind through the plagues. What lessons can be learned from the first confrontation between the God of the Hebrews and the gods of Egypt? In the first confrontation, Aaron's rod turned into a serpent. The magicians of Egypt also turned their rods into a serpent magically, but Aaron's serpent swallowed theirs. The Egyptians considered the snake god to be sacred, adored, and worshipped. But by this manifestation of divine power, God communicated to the Egyptians that he, not the snake god, has sovereign power and authority. Was Pharaoh's heart hardened by himself or by God? Pharaoh made the choice to harden his heart. He did not let the children of Israel go, and God strengthened or deepened Pharaoh's own choice. His willful action, as God had told Moses he would do. Exodus chapter 4 verse 21. What lessons can be learned from Pharaoh's heart hardening? We all have the ability to choose between good and evil. From Lucifer, to Adam and Eve in Eden, to Pharaoh in Egypt, and to us today wherever we abide, we choose either life or death. Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 19. What are the significances of the first three plagues? The first three plagues were directed to Egyptian gods. By turning the river Nile into blood, God demonstrated that he alone was the creator of everything, not Hapi, the god of the Nile whom the Egyptians invented. The second plague, that involved production of frogs, confronted the Egyptian frog goddess, Hecate. Instead of life, the Nile produced frogs, further demonstrating God's power. The third plague involved the mass production of insects from the earth. It was directed to the god Geb, the Egyptian god of the earth. In all three plagues, God was showing his people and the Egyptians his power, and judging the Egyptian gods. How did the fourth, fifth, and sixth plagues further confront the gods of Egypt? The fourth plague was directed to Khepri, the god of the rising sun, creation, and rebirth, who was depicted with the head of a scarab beetle. The next plague falls on the livestock in confrontation of Hathor, the Egyptian goddess of love and protection, and a bull god Apis, who was also very popular and highly regarded in Egypt. The sixth plague is a total defeat of Isis, the goddess of medicine, magic, and wisdom, Sekhmet, goddess of war and epidemics, and Imhotep, god of medicine and healing. What was the impact of the sixth plague on the Egyptians? The Egyptians were affected by the boils. Even the magicians and sorcerers are so affected by the boils that they cannot appear in court, which shows that they are helpless against the creator of heaven and earth. Pharaoh's heart was also hardened again. Why was Pharaoh's heart hardened by God? Pharaoh's heart's hardening by God as a consequence of his own actions of choosing to disobey God's command to let his people go. Why did God let Pharaoh live? God announces that his purpose for letting Pharaoh live was for the whole earth to know him. Exodus chapter 9 verse 16. Which gods were confronted in the seventh, eighth, and ninth plagues? The seventh plague, hail, confronted Nut, the goddess of the sky and heavens, depicted as controlling what happened under the sky, and Osiris, the god of crops and fertility. The eighth plague, locusts, confronted Seth, the Egyptian god of storm, war, disorder, and Isis, who were both considered agricultural deities. The plague also confronted Shu, the Egyptian god of the atmosphere, and Serapis, who personified divine majesty, fertility, healing, and afterlife. Finally, the ninth plague, darkness, confronted the sun god, Ra. None of the gods of Egypt could stop God's judgments. Exodus chapter 10 verses 4-20. Because idols are nothing. Isaiah chapter 44 verses 9, 10, 12, 17. How successful were the seventh, eighth, and ninth plagues? Although Pharaoh made some compromises, he changed his mind and would not let Israel go. Again, the gods of the Egyptians could not intervene in the plagues of hail, locusts, and darkness. In conclusion, God does not love oppression, and we see the plagues as God's judgment on Israel's oppressors. God has also given us the freedom to choose, and we are to choose rightly. May God help us to make the right choices, in Jesus' name.